Well, not every day, but once in a week, voices of note get up and speak. They tell stories, these voices, Listen up now, listen up to the show for voices that move and voices that shape. This is the show. This is my mixtape. Hey, Radio Valley listeners out there, you out there, you're listening to my mixtape here on Radio Valley 99.9 FM, just beyond 4:30 here on a Friday afternoon. My name is Supe, and behind the controls, as always, is NC, managing the board. You're probably wondering who my guest is. I am very excited to introduce my guest today because he's a person that I grew up regarding as a mentor figure, and I'm so pleased to have him over here. Is a person that I've looked up to practically all my life. Welcome to my mixtape, the former Education Minister, Thakur Singh Powdyel.
Yes, sir, very kind, Kunga. Thank you.
There is nothing to be kind about. This is genuine. But yes, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much indeed.
Right off the bat, I have to say that quite often we're worried about guests who are inaudible sometimes because they don't have a theatre voice. I don't think we're going to have that problem today, are we?
Let's try our best. Yes.
Right. As some of you probably out there, people of my age, older than me, people younger than me, people who've passed through the haloed gates of Sherubtse College in Kunlung would know Thakur Singh Powdyel is a name that sits right up there for so many of us. One of the things that we used to really look forward to, besides being in your classroom, if we were in your classrooms, one of the things that we always used to look forward to was not having the principal in the college at that time. Because that meant you would be giving the Monday morning address, the assembly. And we'd all look forward to that. Everybody looked forward to that. It was, we'd get pearls of wisdom from you. At the same time, we'd get it in a manner that was so entertaining that even if you were scolding us, we'd love it. I'm looking forward to such a conversation here today, La. So, in any case, tell us, Limo, what's happening these days? You kind of disappeared as far as we know. You've been under the radar, but what's been happening?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Kunga, and Radio Valley, as indeed my mixtape, for giving us, everybody, this space. And me particularly, I didn't expect that I'd be here this afternoon, but such joy to be here together with you, Kunga, after so many days, I must say. As a matter of fact, I'm an institution-based person. So if I'm not in an institution, people would suddenly realize that I must have gone away somewhere. Indeed, I was away. I just got back 2 days ago.
Okay, Las.
I was traveling in Europe.
Wow.
Yes, visiting about 4 countries and spent about 6 weeks.
Wow, nice.
Yes, starting with Lithuania, then Ukraine, Portugal, and finally the Czech Republic. I just got back yesterday.
So Eastern Europe, then on to the Iberian Peninsula.
Yes,
beautiful, beautiful. Must have been a wonderful trip.
It was really amazing, I must say. Yes, to say the least, yes.
And, but you're no stranger to Europe. You're a person who studied there as well for a while. You're also a person who, well, if not for your ethnic background, you would pass off as European if people just heard you speak, and for you to go to these places, I mean, places like Lithuania, I wouldn't have imagined Lithuania. These are the places I dream of going. People want to go to Rome, and people want to go to Paris and New York. These aren't the places I want to go. I want to go to Lithuania. I want to go to Slovakia. I want to go to Kazakhstan, Peru, Cambodia. These are the places that I want to go. So you've been to some dream places for me. Tell us, what was it like there? Eastern Europe, Lithuania, these places.
I was on an invitation by people there, actually. We had met some of these great individuals during their trip to Bhutan. And we kept our links and for quite a while now. And then, of course, we have been sharing some of our dreams together, particularly about education. And today, education is a very big issue all over the world. And these countries are very advanced, the developed countries. However, there's a very deep desire in all these countries to know about what Bhutan is doing in education, for example.
Las.
And it was so humbling for me to be able to meet educators, in all these countries, education administrators. In these countries, education is not the job of the Ministry of Education alone. Education is everybody's business there. So
Nice.
all across the system, people are involved in education because they see that if they have to change the society, improve the country, they have to invest in education. So they are prepared to listen to anybody from anywhere in the world. And they feel that Bhutan has some messages. And it was an extremely humbling experience for me to be able to share whatever little I know about education and about development, about some of our national goals. So these countries, in fact, have been such a great experience for me.
Okay, Las. So good to know that you were able to go to these places and share the Bhutanese education experience. And of course, how characteristic of you to so humbly put it that you know little when you are probably one of the walking encyclopedias of education in Bhutan. You've been in that sector for so long, of course, and that's how we recognize you as well, But obviously, many of us are in the dark when it comes to your past. I mean, who are you? Who was Thakur Singh Powdyel? Where did he grow up? Where was he born? What kind of education did he have? How did he come into the education system? All of that. Take us through that mystery, Sla.
I'm a country boy generally.
Las.
Born and brought up in a remote village, Tarakha,
Right.
Samji district. Didn't intend to go to school in the first place. Yes, the school was a source of fear at that time. Yes,
Okay.
So I had actually decided that I would not be going to school if it was not for my parents,
Las.
who never went to school, didn't know how to read or write. They were not literate, even though they were very educated. So I'm very grateful to them that despite their own many disadvantages, they knew that education was going to be important for the children, and
Right.
they put me to school. Quite late, in fact, when I went to school. However, when I went to school finally, I discovered that it wasn't such a bad place after all.
Okay.
And so liked the school and picked up quite a few double promotions and caught up with my friends who had started school much earlier than me. And all along it's been a beautiful journey. In fact, I came down to Samchi, from there went to Shillong and stayed on there for 6 years till I finished my postgraduate studies in the Northeastern Hill University and took my...
What did you study, La?
I did English literature.
Right, Las.
Yeah, so-
Continue, please, La.
Yeah, and when I came back to Bhutan, we had to take the RCC examinations. Before that, actually, we had to do national service. At that time, national service was compulsory for all school graduates and college graduates.
Okay.
So I did national service twice, actually.
Okay.
Once in 1977.
Las.
I traveled all the way to Tashiyangtse and then to Mongar Gepshing and to Tashigang. So several districts in the east. And when I came back in 1983, I did my second round of national service. So I did my national service twice.
Las, just to make it clear for the uninitiated who are not aware of what national service means, can you just briefly tell us what that is about, La? National service?
It was basically a kind of an engagement, with the country.
Okay, Las.
The students from one part of the country would be sent to another part of the country because at that time Bhutan wasn't connected the way it is today.
Right.
So it was actually a discovery of the country, discovery of people, and really coming to terms with them and being engaged with them, how our people lived. So it was a kind of a deep engagement with the life of our people in different parts of the country. So it was an education. And today I'm very grateful to that experience that I had twice, once in 1977 and another time in 1984. These engagements helped me to develop deep insights about our country.
Las.
These engagements took me across many districts, especially in the east. And today I feel so fortunate that I was able to go through this. This was an important experience because Especially when students go to colleges and universities, they develop very high ideals. They feel that after graduation, they have found a solution to all the problems of the world. So it is actually testing ground for those ideals. Basically, they bring down to the earth
Right.
individuals who carry big egos,
Right. True.
big ideals, which are important. But when you know the reality with which people live their lives, you become more humble. You develop more insights.
That is so true. Love.
Oh yes,
so
indeed. I feel that even though at that time we were still very deeply rooted in the soil, having been born and brought up within the country and having gone to school in the country. However, there was so much to discover and so much to celebrate indeed. The finest things about our country I discovered during the national service. It was an inward journey, see. It was a deep, deep inward journey, and the journey carries on. Yes.
That is so wonderful to hear, love, because I believe sincerely that is precisely what I went through also when I was first posted to a rural place. Anyway, but I do not want to interrupt your journey. We'll get back on the reflection and all of that in just a while. But please continue. So you did your national service in 84, and then what happened?
Well, then we got back to Thimphu, and at the time we had to take the civil service examination. It was compulsory for everybody. We were 30 of us in my batch, and at that point in time, if you did very well in the civil service selection examination, you got to choose any ministry that you wanted to get into. I could have very easily chosen the foreign ministry. That was the done thing at that point in time.
Yes, so everybody wanted to get into the foreign ministry.
And when I said that I was going to join education as a teacher, everybody felt that I was so stupid. Yes. A crazy person would ditch the foreign ministry and get into teaching, which is not as glamorous as being in the foreign ministry. However, that is what I wanted to do, and I'm so grateful for that decision. Today, I think I'm so happy that I've been able to engage myself, I believe, on a much wider platform. Being in education, I've been able to share with so many thousand young men and women of this country.
Agreed.
Some of my very deep beliefs, my convictions, my ideals, my dreams about education, about development, about our country, about our people. So I'm so happy that even though at that point in time many people felt that it was a blunder, for me it was not a blunder. It was my choice. And I have absolutely no regrets about that.
And what a brave choice it was. I mean, it would have been unheard of at that time for anybody to choose teaching over, what would have been a potentially glamorous career in, something like the foreign ministry. And even if it wasn't the foreign ministry, certainly in the mainstream civil service, that was considered a far more attractive job than teaching. It still is in many ways, although it shouldn't be. That's just, again, my feeling. But I think you're living proof of that fact that that conscious choice that you made was probably the right choice, and you felt that it was right for you. I'm so thankful because it was the right choice for many of us. Your decision was the right choice for many of us because we benefited from it. So many generations and generations of Bhutanese students that passed under your wing benefited from it. Anyway, last, please continue then. So you wanted to be a teacher.
Then we had a short stint at the University of London Institute of Education to train to be a teacher. Came back and my first posting was to Jemgang Central School then. That was the year 1984. The school was upgraded to a central school.
Okay, Las.
And they needed some teachers. So my friend Sri Tanzin and myself were posted there.
Las.
I spent about 45 days only there before I went for my studies. Training again, and when I came back from my studies, I was sent to Samchi. That time it was the National Institute of Education.
Right, NIE.
NIE, yes. From there, in 1986, I was sent to Sherubtse College.
Okay.
So, because it seemed there was a need for an English teacher, so I was a bit late to get there because the session had already started, but I had to complete my engagements at Samchi. So. Stayed 15 years at Sherubtse College. And,
Right.
yes, my best days was spent at Sherubtse College.
But that's a long time,
Yes,
15 years.
15 years. But every bit fulfilling. It was
Nice.
hard work.
Right.
Hard work. 7 days a week. Anywhere between 10 and 15 hours a day. Yes, as you would remember.
Last.
Yes, so, but
Let me just a second. Speaking of 15 years, we've come to the point in the show where we're hitting the 15-minute mark, which means it's probably about the time we'll continue this journey.
Yes.
But it's probably about the time we introduce your mixtape. The first song on your playlist is Ngata Yebo by Lubesonomishe. Tell us, why is this on your, or heading your playlist?
it has always been my favorite
Las.
because it engages all of us.
True.
It is a tribute to His Majesty the King. It is a tribute to the finest ideals of this country. And ever since Lubesonomishe gave to us this song, I've been a fan of this. So yes, it's a very deeply felt tribute.
I would certainly think so.
Yes.
And its melody is haunting as well.
Yes, indeed. So yes.
I have to confess, I haven't been, the most ardent listener of Dzonka songs, especially Dzonka Riksar songs. And part of that is down to the fact that I'm not too proficient in the language itself. And I spent most of my youth away from home, so there was always this disconnect. I think the one song that I remember all of a sudden just taking a fancy to and singing, while I was at home, washing the dishes, going to the toilet, all of that, was this song. And it's strange to know that it's precisely this song that you picked up.
It galvanizes the whole country.
I think so, La.
It embraces the whole country, galvanizes each one of us, men, women, and children. And it's a tribute to an individual, an icon that we all, in fact, revere and draw great inspiration from.
I hope,
His Majesty our King.
Yes, La. I hope that's the feeling that you get as well when you listen to the song. So let's check it out then. Ngata Yebo by Lubesonomishe. For those of you who tuned in late, you're listening to my mixtape here on Radio Valley 99.9 FM. My name is Supe. NC's behind the control. And my guest today, in case you're wondering, in case you tuned in late, is the former Minister of Education, Thakur Singh Powdyel. Right. Back to you, La, and your story. So, 15 years at Sherubtse. You got there in 86, was it, La?
86, yeah.
86. I got there in 89 as your student. I have to say, you probably don't know this, but the first class that I attended was yours. First class ever in Sherubtse. I had joined about a month late because I had an eye infection of some sort, and then the infection was still not gone. I had half my face swollen, and I entered the class. It was your class. Everybody said, this is the vice principal, you have to be careful on your best behavior. And then I told you that I'm a new student, and I had just joined. And you asked me my name, and in front of everybody else, I said, my name is Kungsti Dodge, and I'm from Thimphu. I don't know if you remember that, La.
Yes.
And then I had my friends on my same desk who were nudging me. People I'd already known from militia training and all of that. So I was already familiar with many of my classmates. And they were nudging me from back, you don't fool around with the vice principal. You don't do that. But then, of course, over the 5 years that I spent over there, I must say, I gave you a lot of cause for concern, and you gave me a lot of concern, a lot of cause for learning and motivation. Really, you did, La. I remember when I left at the end of 5 years, just after my last exam, you called me over to your office and you said that I had been very fortunate to have completed my 5 years there because you hadn't seen anybody else get into so many disciplinary problems with the assistant principal and the principal. I remember that very well as well. Anyway, but I have to say, yes, that you made an immediate impact on me when I went there. Just from the sheer delivery of your speech, the way you used to talk, and it was yours was a class that I would never miss. I used to miss a lot of classes, but yours was one I wouldn't miss. Anyway, last. So those 15 years in Sherubtse, I know you can't just brush it off like a brush stroke that in one flash it goes. But take us through it. What were some of the things that were memorable from that time?
Kunga, Sherubtse was psychologically as far away as it was physically and geographically.
It was back then, yes.
And for many people, going to Sherubtse was an extremely difficult experience.
Mm-hmm.
However, at that point in time, whenever the government posted you somewhere, you just went, yes, very faithfully and obediently. So that's what I did. I went with an open mind, but I had also heard a lot of good stories about Sherubtse. It was a long, long journey, from Samchi all the way to Kanglung. And my 15 years, I must say, were among the most memorable. I didn't feel that I stayed there as many as 15 years, looking back at it. As I said earlier on, it was hard work. But that was the minimum I owed to my students. Back then, we had only one junior college in the country, Kanglung. Some years later, Royal Thimphu Central School was upgraded to teach 11 and 12 classes as well.
91.
Yes, but in the late 1980s, when I actually went to Sherubtse, it was the only institution in the country that admitted students to do pre-university classes 11 and 12.
Yes,
and then in 1983, we started the degree program under the auspices of the Delhi University. At that point in time, young people from across the country carrying big dreams and ambitions in life converged in Kanglung. There is a kind of a melting pot for Bhutan. And you had to understand why these young people came to Kanglung. They had big dreams, big aims in life. They wanted to be ministers, secretaries, directors, doctors, engineers, pilots, professionals in every field. Those people, with high ambitions came to Kanglung. And we had to understand these dreams. We had to really go through these hopes in young people as if these were your hopes and your dreams. Because these were the country's dreams as well.
Let me just stop you there. Pardon me, just let me stop you there. And let me say this. I'm sure there were many of you out there, people of my age and older and younger, my generation, that were in Kanglung while Thakur Singh Powdyel was there. And I know there's so many of you to whom he meant so much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open the phone lines. All right, 1-999. That's the number that you need to call. If any of you are out there, you want to talk to Limbo and you want to talk to us, essentially, please do call 1-999-1999. And let's hear from you. Please do call. All right, continue.
Yes, so. When so many young people with such big dreams and hopes came to Sherubtse College, you had to understand that you owed it to them to do your best. So as harsh and unkind as I might have appeared then, it was in a way an attempt to be kind by being unkind, see. I know that many of my students would remember that very often life may not have been a bed of roses
True.
in every sense of the term. However, when you knew that these people, our scholars, young men and women who came to Kangnu, had such big dreams in life, you had to do more than the minimum, because you had to honor those dreams. You had to celebrate these dreams and facilitate the fruition of those dreams. So it was extremely important to understand why these young people came there and what dreams they had in their life, and what they wanted to do for the country then.
Thus.
So you had to go out of your way,
Right.
out the beaten track, and extend yourself. So even though it might have looked very difficult for many young people to, especially in the beginning, manage their life at Kangnu, however, everybody forged on and did extremely well. And today, when we look around, it is the Sherubtseans who are running the country.
True.
By and large.
True.
Because there are many other institutions to which our Bhutanese students also went, and they are serving the country very well indeed. But if you look at the country today, the government, actually, the civil service, the service forces, this is where, in fact, I see so many of our Sherubtseans.
Thus.
And it was always my view that at any one point in time, the one single institute from which the largest number of people would graduate and join the society would be Sherubtse.
Thus.
And sure enough, today, if we look around, right from the Prime Minister to the member of the Parliament, our doctors, our engineers, the vast majority of them have been the proud products of Sherubtse College. I do not claim any credit for what they're doing today. They did everything on their own, and what they're doing today, serving the country with such dedication and pride, is thanks to their own dedication and their own hard work. But it was wonderful to have them at Sherubtse, and I was able to share some of my deepest convictions, my deepest beliefs, my ideals and my dreams with them. So that was a place, a space that provided to me a wonderful platform to do what little I could in the life of so many of our young men and women who are so beautifully serving our country today. So those were my finest days. Sherubtse College, 15 years, every bit worth it.
Very well put, because I would think that was, really, that was my experience as well. I came from one of the most distinguished colonial schools in India, which had a long British tradition and had various facilities and all of that. And then I came to Sherubtse, and for me that was a place. Three things that stood out as soon as I got there were one, the basketball court seemed to have a mind of its own, because with every turn and bounce, you could never predict where the ball was going to go. That was the first thing. The second thing that I remember was that black spidery mess that I called handwriting was actually accepted as handwriting. I was very grateful for that. And the third thing was, that was the first place I'd been to where the puris that you got on Sunday morning were bigger than the plate. Bigger and harder than the plate. Right. So obviously it was a rude awakening for me, but I have to say I took an instant liking to the place. I grew into Sherubtse in no time at all. And it's true what you say, so many of us nourished our dreams, and you cannot be modest and say that it was all our hard work. It was you who, you and the other staff who nourished these dreams. And I have to say this again, I'm not trying to blow sunshine up your skirt or sunshine up your core in our case. The truth of the matter is, Thakur Singh Powdyel was always a gentleman. That was one thing we understood. No matter how hard he was with us, because he had to be, because of his position, we always understood where your intent was. And we could see it in the way you carried yourself when you came for SUPW as well. You wouldn't just sit around and, laze about and just look at us doing our work. You would be equally in it with us. You'd have the stick in your hand and you'd be, raking the leaves as you went along and talking to us. And we saw all of that. We noticed that. And I think that is why, besides the fact that you motivated us so much, and that the depth of your wisdom and your intelligence is so vast, besides all of that, we understood the kind of person you were. We could sense it. I mean, we were young, we were stupid, we were egotists, if you would, and some of us were idealists, whatever. But we were smart enough to understand that, I think, or let's say we could sense it, or humane enough to sense your humanity. And I think that's the enduring quality of yours that all of us carried throughout those 5 years or 2 years or how many ever years we spent there, and carried with us throughout. And which is why, when you eventually left Sherubtse and came to the west of the country, Paro it was, you had a big reception of people wanting to welcome you, of all your ex students, your former students. Anyway, right. So I'm preempting something. Your move then from Sherubtse. Where was it that you went? Like Paro, yes, but give us the details then.
Sherubtse has been something of an extension of my life, as indeed I might have been an extension of Sherubtse's dreams, because it was supposed to be the peak of learning. Sherubtse, peak of learning. And as the peak of learning, it had to set high standards. And if we were to play a very popular, cheap game, it was very easy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But one often had to be very firm. But at the same time, very fair, see. And it is credit to all the people, young men and women from across the country who came to Sherubtse, who actually worked hard. And today, if I've come to where I've come to, it is all thanks to the goodness and the goodwill of my students there. Because they were not only my students, they were my friends.
Yes.
And in sun and rain, they have been my well-wishers. We went through some difficult times as well. And my students never betrayed me. They never suspected my faith and my loyalty and my integrity. And these 37 years, I have been able to come, travel. It's all thanks to the inspiration that I actually received from my students. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to so many batches of my students and their parents and my mentors themselves, for what I've been able to do. So coming away from Sherubtse was very painful. I didn't want to come actually, but the ministry then was starting a Center for Educational Research and Development at Paro, and I was supposed to come away to start the center. It was a one-man center for 3 years. But we did some good work. It was supposed to be a research center, and it was an old classroom that was given to me with a chair with a big hole right in the middle. So yes, but we managed. That was not important. What was important was what we were doing in that facility.
Right.
And with my colleague, Mr. Nitub Zangpum, and Ms. Pradhan and Setin Gyaltsen, who is now a pilot, we worked hard and produced some very fine documents for the Ministry of Education. Stayed in Paro for 7 years. And in 2007, when there was a big call in the country, we had to come forward. Initially, I was so hesitant to actually come forward, but a time came when one had to make up one's mind and take some hard decisions. And I think it had its own merit, and we have moved on. Came to Thimphu in 2008, and I've been here since.
Right. Okay. Let's just. It's a perfect time to get back into your playlist and move on to the second song, which is appropriate when you're talking about having to give back. This is the song "We Are the World," USA for Africa. Tell us about this. Why is this on your playlist?
I'm not too much of a listener of songs as such, but there was a big moment in the world. I think a part of the world was suffering, part of humanity was suffering, and some people came forward to give a part of themselves, to give their best, as it were. So this song captured the world, captured the deep core of humanity, and I think it was a moment when humanity rose to a very high level.
I would think so
For
too.
a very big cause.
I would think so too.
And I think to this day, this song motivates and inspires a lot of people to give the best. I think we don't give enough. We don't share enough. But that was a high point in the history of the humanity when people came forward to give their best.
I was an adolescent, what was I, class 6 or 7 when this song came out. Back then, it was 84, I think it was 1984. And so this is a song that I've known practically all my life. I never get tired of it. It's absolutely true what you say. It is an exceptionally motivating song. I think, yes, humanity did reach a certain high point at that time. So yeah, let's check the song out. The evergreen, the ever wonderful We Are the World. Right, my mixtape here on Radio Valley 99.9 FM. My name is Supe, and again, in case you joined us late, my guest here today is Thakur Singh Powdyel, the former education minister. And also, I forgot to mention, we're on video. We've been on video for quite a while on YouTube, thanks to the good work of Bhupen, Kushab, and Gamita's new. She's an intern with Lavanya Films, which is why, and I'm terribly sorry. I'm really bad with names. Anyway, so these are the good folks that are bringing this stuff on YouTube. If you're watching on video, for the rest of you on radio, we will continue our live conversation with Thakur Singh Powdyel. Right. So we've moved back in time into when you said you heard the call and you answered it, and you're referring to the time when you joined politics, right? And then you became with the DPT, you became the education minister. Talk us through those. How did it? I mean, for many of us, it was unimaginable that Thakur Singh Powdyel, politics. What? You know, that was the reaction. But you did it, and could you take us through the paces, sir?
I was one of the very last persons to join, the political process. But it was a very special moment in the history of our country. Our King of Destiny, His Majesty Dugal-Jipan Jim Singh Wangchuk, had announced that Bhutan would go democratic. And if Bhutanese people didn't come forward, who would? There was just one party for almost a year in the country. And with one party, you could have elections. And democracy was almost looking like a non-starter.
Yes.
And there was the time when some of our senior leaders who had decided to stay back and call it a day, but came forward and took up this very important mission on. And at that point in time, as difficult as it was to make a decision for me, actually I went away to Kyoto University just to escape the pressure.
Yes.
It was a wonderful respite for 3 months.
Okay.
But when I came back, the very second day, people came around again to ask me to come forward and join. And finally, I had to also search deep inside myself. This was a very big national project.
Right.
We were accustomed to living under the beautiful sunshine that shone from the throne. And all of a sudden, when the country had to come to terms with democracy, it was an extremely difficult moment. In many countries, when democracy comes, people get very excited.
Mm-hmm.
They feel that this is the ultimate prize that they could get. But in our case, we were so happy with what His Majesty the Fourth King was doing, and we wanted him to continue forever. However, it was His Majesty's decision that Bhutan should go democratic. But we had a dream. We had a dream that Bhutanese democracy would flourish under the benign presence of His Majesty the King, who would always provide guidance. But that we would be able to nurture our democratic culture, a refined polity, a refined political culture, a culture in which people would have faith, a culture that would be honorable, respectable, a democracy that would take into account the need to preserve and protect the important elements of the state, our sovereignty, our independence, our security, our peace, our well-being, and that Bhutanese democracy would be different from democracies that we have known elsewhere in the world. There are democracies everywhere, but not every democracy is succeeding or flourishing.
True.
Democracy is meant to empower people, but in many cases it ends up by disempowering people. And democracy is exciting, it is dramatic, but if you do not handle democracy properly, it can soon be a liability.
True.
And democracy can be a great disservice to the people and to the country. That is why democracy can never be taken for granted. You have to cultivate it, you have to nurture it, you have to look after it every single day. See? So that's why that was a big moment. As reluctant as we were to get into the political process, once we were there, we were sure that there was a big responsibility. The responsibility to look after the big heritage handed down to us by succeeding generations of our kings, to honor the dreams and hopes of our people and the aspirations of their majesties, and at the same time to nurture democracy in a way that would be honorable, that would be respectable, a system in which people would have faith. So that is how we worked for 5 years, from day one till the very last day. And the country was big. It was not politics, it was not elections, it was not campaigns. The ultimate important point of engagement was the future of this country, our important age-old institutions, the well-being of our people, the future of our children. See? So those were big issues that were at play at the point when we decided to come forwards. So it was a point at which we had to take these important decisions. So it was one thing to stay back and remain comfortable in one's chair. I had a good job, secure. I could have carried on. See. And the next important choice was to come forward and participate in this big national project. I'm very happy that as difficult as it was, I'm also deeply fulfilled that at that historic moment, at that epochal moment in Bhutan, in our country, we were able to play a little part. And we were always so happy and blessed to receive the guidance and the blessings of His Majesty. Since it was the first elected government, there were two major objectives that we had to keep in mind all the time. The first objective being the sovereignty, independence, security, peace, and the well-being of our country. And the second important objective, in democracy, people elect the government. And when they elect a government, they have their expectations. And it is the responsibility of an elected government to fulfill these expectations of our people. And our people's expectations then were very, very modest. Many people didn't even know what democracy is and what to ask of the elected government. So we had to work on goodwill. We had to work in good faith and understand the needs of the people. And our people's needs are very simple. What do they need? Their needs for road. Road is a basic need. Where there was no road, we had to build a road. Electricity, for example, Where there was no electricity, again a very basic need, where to supply electricity. If there was no school, where to build a school. If the schools are closed, we had to reopen those schools. If medical facilities were not available, we had to provide those. Agriculture services, telecommunications. So these were some of the basic needs of our people at that point in time. And our people are still very innocent. So they also came forward to vote in good faith.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, in fact, these were two of the major objectives of the first elected government. It had to set standards. And it was, we owed it to the country, we owed it to the people, we owed it to our monarchs to institute a system that would be something that our people would trust, our people would have faith in, and something that would serve the long-term interests of the country.
Lars, so I don't want to get into all the matters of how well the government did, the first government did, or how badly they did, or anything of that sort. No criticism whatsoever. However, just and I have to be frank here, coming to you yourself, it was, speaking of expectations, it was expected of you by many of us that an educationist of such repute and renown as yourself, and caliber as well of yourself, would bring about remarkable, hitherto unseen changes, dramatic changes in the education sector. And the overwhelming feeling, I think, in many of us, I wouldn't say all of us or most of us, because I don't know, that would be inaccurate, but in many of us, was that you had your hands tied. Your hands were tied because there were many other considerations and sensitivities that had to be looked into. Would that be true?
I think, of course, at any point in time in the life of a country, there are opportunities as well as challenges.
Right.
And we have to address both these. Opportunities, of course, have been plenty. Actually, this country has made possible for its people. And in terms of challenges, at that point in time, admissions were still difficult for many children. So we, in fact, by 2012, we had actually achieved universal enrollment.
Right.
So all the children age 6, as far as I know, were in school.
Right.
And some of the Dzongkhas celebrated their universal enrollment achievements.
Right.
Punakha being the first one.
Plus.
Bumthang was second. Dawan was third. So several Dzongkhas went, in fact, all out to make sure that every child in their Dzongkhak got into school. And by 2012, we had actually achieved universal enrollment. And that was also the time when Bhutan had the largest number of non-formal education centers and the largest enrollment in the non-formal education.
True.
For which the UNESCO awarded to Bhutan 2 medals, one in 2009 and the gold medal in 2011. And we were able to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. In the region, we would be the first country to achieve the Millennium Development Goals for education. Goal number 2 being universal enrollment for primary age school children. And goal number 3, achieving gender parity. So both of these goals were achieved by Bhutan by 2012. And in terms of non-formal education, it was a big success story. We had 858 non-formal education centers across the country. As many as 170,000 men and women who had missed the bus when they were young were enrolled.
Plus.
So, given those situations when the expectations were very high, I think while we could have done more, I think what the government did then would have been quite commendable. We could have done more, certainly, but it was not just the education ministry, but also the other ministries, which also equally have a legitimate claim on the resources of the government.
Yes.
But we paid topmost attention to education. Education always received education and health always receive between 20 and 23% of the total budget outlays.
True, that is true. Lars.
So our aim was to reach the last child in the last hamlet, and I traveled across the country. I would have met about 80% of the school teachers and about 80% of the school children. I would have traveled to about 80% of the schools, visited the remotest school in the country. I traveled 7 days to reach Lunana to celebrate the International Literacy Day on 8th September. And I'm so glad today that I could visit these schools, meet our children, our teachers, our parents. So in terms of coverage, I think what we achieved would have been something that we could be legitimately happy about. While it was perhaps expected that we did more, but given the time and the expectations, we had to actually share our resources.
I wanted to bring some focus onto that, and I'm glad you went there as well. One of the things that a lot of people don't quite understand is that, true, if you're spending 20 to 23% of the budget on health and education, that's comparable to most developed countries as well,
It is.
It is. However, the challenge for us is that unlike those countries, we were still spending a large part of that on infrastructure building schools, dormitories, dining halls and all of that, which were necessary as well. So that was the other challenge that somehow people kind of miss as well. So that was a legitimate challenge also. Would you not agree?
Oh yes, indeed. We actually built 35 school campuses across the country. And that took in a lot of the resources in the building of infrastructure, because we need decent facilities, for our children and teachers to work in, and that speaks a lot about the kind of attitude we have towards education, towards teaching and learning. Having said that, I also should emphasize the fact that we still have a lot of work to do in the remoter areas.
True.
So even some of the basic resources, we aren't able to get there on time.
So I think, what I was talking about, the question that I was asking earlier about the expectations and how we expected more. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that, because you were in the education sector for so long and you were such a revered figure, that the changes would come about more in the area of syllabi and pedagogy and in the more theoretical areas. But like I pointed out a while ago, you had to invest quite a bit in infrastructure as well. So it was an uphill battle for you in any case.
Infrastructure building was one component, but the other component was other components were in fact curriculum development, and teacher training, teacher preparation, professional development of our teachers. So in those areas also, I believe we did quite a lot of work. For example, we looked at mathematics, science curriculum, social studies. So there was quite a lot of reform brought about there. And we introduced this very big national education reform initiative called Educating for Gross National Happiness, to be implemented through nurturing green schools. And today, a lot of people around the world are actually interested in what we're doing. So this was also part of the reason why they feel that Bhutan may have something to offer.
Okay.
So we introduced quite a lot of changes in curriculum development and teacher preparation. We prepared the first human resource master plan for teachers, through which our teachers got to go all the way down to grade 1, the highest grade in civil service. So a teacher could be working in a primary school, but this person, either through the administrative ladder or through the academic ladder, could go all the way up to grade 1, the government secretary's level in the civil service lab. So that master plan actually was an important initiative that the education ministry took then, and our colleagues worked hard to develop many policies and also engaging the parents. Quite a few of the schools across the country were closed during the troubled times.
Yes.
So we had to get those back on track.
Okay.
And we started what was then called extended classrooms. Extended classrooms was a very important initiative, a strategy that we initiated to reach the unreached. So if there were about 10 children in a community, we opened an extended classroom. And that was convenient for parents as well as for children, because they didn't have to travel long distances, often through difficult terrain, infested by wild animals, to get to the next school. So some of these initiatives have helped Bhutan move forward, in terms of building literacy, non-formal education, continuing education, opening of closed schools, and expanding enrollment in a rapid manner, and preparing teachers. We actually initiated the process of performance management of schools, performance management system, through which even today we are assessing the performance of schools. And just a couple of days ago, I heard the report of the Education Ministry that announced the results of the performance management analysis.
Nice.
So these important initiatives were actually started at that point in time. We touched both the hardware as well as the software. We have to build infrastructure. But more importantly, in education, the intangibles are far more important. I think it was the point, I heard some stories myself when we conducted these important 3 6-day workshops for our school leaders and deputy leaders. At the end of the workshop, many of our leaders would say that for the first time, they were able to discover the soul of their role. I have been a principal for 30 years, for 20 years, 15 years. But now I discover what the soul of my role is.
Okay.
People are able to look deep inside themselves. They were able to come to terms with the core purpose for which they were appointed as educators and school leaders. So I think both in terms of hardware as well as software, I think we did a lot of work. And we saw that the language of discourse had actually changed. The language that the school leaders used, our teachers used, and the way the students themselves were conducting, actually saw a very refreshing change. So I do not claim credit for these. It's the whole system working.
I wanted to say that as well.
Our teachers in the remotest parts of the country were doing a wonderful job. Our colleagues in the ministry, in the districts, at all levels, the government together, and parents, everybody came forward. So that was a very, very refreshing change for the education ministry, I must say. Despite the deficiencies and the inadequacies, we opened up, and many people are able to go to college. They got scholarships.
Well, thank you for setting the record straight. Yes, and I also have to point out that one of the difficult things, when you try and gauge education and development in education, one of the difficult things is that, as you mentioned, the hardware is immediately tangible and can be seen. The software takes a while to manifest.
It does.
It always takes time to manifest. So even if you did something today, it would take years and years before you saw it actually bear fruit. So that's one of the things about education also. So perhaps, when I was talking about expectations, it was the fact that, it was probably the expectation that things would happen dramatically all of a sudden, which doesn't in education. In any case, let's just get back to what we're talking about, your service and giving. Obviously, you've always been motivated by the institution of the monarchy, and unsurprising, therefore, to see that the third song on your playlist is the Royal Wedding theme song by Ugan Pandey and various artists. Talk us briefly through that. Why is that on your playlist?
The Royal Wedding, was such a blissful moment, in the history of our country. We were all expecting when it was going to happen, and finally when it actually happened, we were so happy, so delighted. It was one of the highest points, in our country, in our memory. So that is a moment that Bhutan came together again in a very special way. I call it a true GNH moment for Bhutan. And there was joy all over. every sentient being would have participated in the celebration of the big event. And some of the finest compositions, whether it's poetry, prose, music, songs, dances, paintings, that was a moment that actually erupted in abundance of creative work. So music and songs, music and dance, art reached a high point at that most momentous hour in the history of this country. So songs captured the mood, the moment. Music actually captured the spirit of the times. And this is a very special song. There were many others, but this stands out as an important token to that moment. And for Bhutan, that was so very important in every sense of the term, for the institution of a monarchy, for the well-being of our country and our people. That was an extremely important and deeply, deeply emotional and joyous moment. That is truly a high point.
I couldn't possibly have put it better, but I identify with that feeling absolutely, because I had the privilege of an audience with His Majesty the King a few years before he actually got married, and in which he very privately confessed to me that he felt it was about time that he stepped into matrimony. And so obviously I was wondering, who is it?
Yeah.
When is it? And sure enough, when it happened, as you mentioned, it was a moment of joy for national celebration. And I think, yes, the Royal Wedding theme song was beautifully sung by of course, none other than Uge Pandey and a number of other singers as well, which in many ways kind of encapsulates the feeling that we were attributing to the previous song, a beautiful moment in the world's history. We are the world. It was that kind of thing, I think, for us. So let's check it out then, the Royal Wedding theme song. All right, that was the Royal Wedding theme song. Moving on then to the final segment here on today's edition of My Mixtape. This is Supe, and behind the controls is NC. My guest today, we've been having an enthralling conversation here with the former Education Minister, Thakur Singh Powdyel. Right, so you just briefly outlined, well, not briefly, but you have outlined to some extent, all the developments that took place in the education sector while you were Education Minister. Obviously, that 5-year run had to come to an end, and another government stepped in. You then returned to education, in a sense. Well, you still were in education, but you returned to an institution, an institute at the Royal Thimphu College. How did that feel?
After the end of the second elections in the country, I stayed home for a year and a half.
Last.
Did some traveling.
Last.
And did some writing. And a point came when I had to honor an old invitation
Last.
to return to Royal Thimphu College. The first invitation actually came in 2007, but then 2007 there was a big national project beginning, as I said earlier on.
Last.
But I hadn't forgotten that very, very gracious invitation. And the call came again, and it was so gracious of Her Royal Highness Ashkezam Omochu and Ashtenzinyantin to ask me to come and serve
Nice.
at Royal Thimphu College. And I spent 3.5 wonderful years at the Royal Thimphu College and did whatever little I could and believed that the college would have moved a step forward. Everybody there worked so hard, everybody so deeply committed, so it was such joy to work there. But when the third round of elections came around, I was again the very last person, to make up a mind
Last.
and to actually literally yield to public pressure. There were calls coming again and again from the people back in the constituency. And I thought when the people wanted me to serve them, for me to stay back comfortably where I was not looking very comfortable in my head. So I thought I should come forward. And that would also be my last opportunity to serve, in a different capacity.
Thus.
Because by the time the next elections come, I will have actually not been within the qualifying age. You see, so but the more important issue was this: that is that 10 years had gone by since the advent of democracy. And democracy, as I mentioned earlier on, can be extremely exciting. It can be very dramatic, but it can also be very chaotic and unruly. See, it can soon be a liability and the undoing of systems. Democracy survives, in my opinion, on three fundamental principles. It survives on the basis of self-discipline. Number 2 is a sense of responsibility. Number 3, mutual respect. I believe these 3 minimum conditions are important for democracy to survive. And Bhutanese democracy, by and large, is doing quite well. But we can never take it for granted. It can so easily fall apart.
True.
That is why we have to consciously, every single moment, nurture it and make it an instrument of service. The danger is that democracy could soon degenerate into politics and politicking. See? And if we are not cautious, if we are not wise, a small country like ours can be extremely vulnerable. And I thought that it was a time for me to come forward again and give up the comfort of RTC. Very good job, you see, and very secure. See? And my employers were, as I understood, were very happy as well, with the way the college was running. See? I could have carried on. But I thought, again, it was a question between my comfort and the need of the hour. So it was important to come forward. And, it was a big sacrifice. Again, it was another very big sacrifice for me. And 35 years into service, even now I have a lot of liabilities. However, I thought that if we could do something to institute a good political culture, a respectable institution of democracy, it would serve the larger interests of the country, our country's long-term well-being. Because situated as we are and as vulnerable as we are, if Bhutanese people are not careful and wise, democracy can be our undoing.
True.
So that's why it was very important to set standards. And even though we didn't win, I didn't win, for example, for my constituency, and everybody was shocked. Yes, because I had served well. See, my constituency was one of the most disadvantaged and remote, God-forsaken constituency, the Rokha. People who had to be penalized were to be sent on punishment transfer to the Rokha, you see. So it was as bad as that. But within 3 years, We built a road all the way up to the Dongkak headquarters, and all the 4 gates were connected by electricity, by road. Every child was going to school, and agriculture, and overall well-being, health situation had improved. So everybody felt that yes, why not? Yes. So, but it was a different matter that the results, finally turned out to be different. However, what I'm happy about is that I played a fair game. I think it was an important participation based on integrity and honesty and fair play. Because if you want to win, if the claim is to win and form the government, if that is the end, the means to that end have to be honorable. Because the ends don't justify the means.
True.
The means have to justify the ends. And if the means are wrong, if they're questionable and corruption ridden, the ends could be questionable and ignoble. So if the end is noble, the means to that end have got to be noble as well. And without integrity, politics falls apart. It becomes hollow. It becomes a liability. So the danger for Bhutan is for democracy to be based on integrity, to be based on fair play, to be based on sincerity and honesty. So that's why the process to that goal is very important. How you conduct your campaign, how do you participate in elections, and how do you win? Is that victory clean, or is that questionable? Who supports you? Who is behind you? All these are important. So for democracy to succeed, we have to be honest. We have to be sincere. We have to play a fair game. See? So that's why for me it was a very important moment in my life. As a matter of fact, I have sacrificed everything.
Nice.
See, and I thought it was an extremely important moment for me to come forward and do my part to address some of the challenges that we're facing as we implement democracy. Because the success of democracy will be important for this country. Because whether we like it or not, it is there now. And because it is there, we might as well make it a respectable instrument of service to the Tsaosum.
Thus. I wouldn't doubt your intentions even for a while, not even for a second. However, things didn't work in your favor. No. And that was a gamble that didn't work out. So, what now? What is Thakur Singh Powdyel going to do?
It was not a gamble as such.
No, obviously. I used the wrong word there.
Yes,
sorry. I used the wrong word there. But
it was... I knew that the call of the nation was bigger than my own comforts. My family, yes, has not been fully in favor of some of these decisions, you see, that I made. I know that at the end of the day, it is the family that bears the brunt, of some of the
Tell me about it. I know that very well.
That we make, you see.
Yes.
However, they have been very supportive, in so many ways. And I felt that, as small as we are, both geographically and demographically, we have to set the right standards for the long-term well-being of this country. So that was my criterion, number one, to come forward. It is a different matter that, the results became different. However, life has to go on. At the moment, I have been doing some traveling, and there have been some invitations and offers. So I might continue doing a bit of that.
Thus.
As I was saying earlier on, even in the past, I've had some very good offers, including one from the BBC many years ago.
Wow.
But I had gone on as as a scholar by the from the government. See, so and as lucrative and as tempting as that was, it was not right for me to stay back and take up the job. I came back in faith with all the good intentions, because this is a small country, as small as we are and as few as we are as a people. That was not going to be good. It somehow I couldn't come to terms with that, so I came back, and I've had several offers after that as well. So even now, see, I have these offers, but I feel for long term, engagement outside is not for me. So I'm deeply engaged with the life of this country. Whether I've done well or not, that's a different matter. But I'm deeply invested in the life of this country, in education, in the well-being of our people, in development, and in the life of young people. See, so for me to not be engaged and be invested would be unthinkable. See, so as long as life remains, as long as I'm around, I feel that I'll remain engaged. Maybe a few breaks here and there. But I have to think of some of the priorities on the home front. You see, so I have to have a roof over the head.
True.
You see,
True.
My children are still studying. Just one is just beginning her service. So a lot of liabilities. However, I feel very fulfilled that I have given my best to my country and to my people, and that is what gives me a lot of satisfaction and a lot of fulfillment. And today, while I could have been well off and much more comfortable, I feel what I have done and what I mean for this country and for the people matters much, much, much more to me than if I had engaged elsewhere and in other areas. So I'm very grateful to His Majesty, the King, their Majesties. I have had the joy of living through the time of three of our great monarchs, and also seeing the arrival of our precious future king. And I've seen the development of this country, where we were and where we have come. So with a lot of humility and a great deep gratitude to our kings, to our people, and above all, my family and my students who have kept me going, I feel that I have still some energy to continue. And the bones may be getting a little weaker, but the spirit is very strong.
Nice.
Yes,
Nice. What you've been saying, and from what I gather, is this, that Thakur Singh Powdyel, the educator, and Thakur Singh Powdyel, the politician, were never two different people. They were still the same person, with the same ideals, with the same sense of dedication and purpose. And if that is true, then that person who stood like a hawk above me while I was digging into a field in Kanglung with my spade, talking to me about what a wonderful job I was doing making that flower garden, and was picking away at those dried leaves, is the person that I remember, is the person that I recognize as Thakur Singh Powdyel, the one person that I knew at that time who would practice what he preached. I think that is the Thakur Singh Powdyel that I would love to remember as well. I don't know whether Thakur Singh Powdyel, the politician, is gone. I mean, in terms of career, but I'm just happy to know the Thakur Singh Powdyel that I knew as a youth, and I'm glad to know that he still has the firmest handshake around, which, by the way, is a very good indicator of the integrity of a person's character.
Very kind, Kunga. It's so kind of you. I have never been in politics.
Yes.
I'm not a politician in the current sense of the term. I can never be a politician in the contemporary sense of the term. If at all, I am a politician in the old Platonic sense. And at that time, as you would know, people joined the political process when they were fairly mature in age as well as in experience, and that was the highest service that a citizen could pay to one's country. And I look at politics in that Platonic sense. And today it pains me to see that politics is becoming more and more of a game, and if it continues, we would have reasons to worry about. And when I finished my 5 years in the government as a member of the parliament, my people's representative, somebody commented, oh, look at this person, 5 years into politics and he's still the same old vice principal of Sherubtse College.
There you go.
I thought that was a compliment. I'm still the same person. I cannot be in politics the way it is understood today. And I felt very sad when I heard from some people that, oh, he's back in politics again. He has joined politics again, as if it was a big crime. You know, democracy is the biggest project, that His Majesty the Fourth King introduced. And we are all serving, that project, to make it honorable, to make it an instrument of service to the country. So that is the reason why politics has to be cleaned up. Politics has to be seen and worked on to be an honorable institution, so that people like me don't become a suspect, in the eyes of the people. It is tragic.
Right.
It is sad that anybody joining the political process should be looked at with some suspicion and doubt. That is ironical. And for me, whether I'm in politics or not, I'm the same person. I cannot be two different persons. And as an educator, this is what I have learnt, and continue to believe in. You cannot be two persons. You cannot have double standards. Many people believe that once you join politics, you have to be a different animal. You become a totally different animal immediately once you join politics. You do not have to. You do not have to. You do not need to. You can remain the same person with the same ideals, with the same standards, with the same integrity. And that is what this country needs. And I feel that this is a project that we have, and we have to nurture it. We have to make it an asset and not a liability.
This is a project that is a joint responsibility that we all need to nurture, and hope that is a sentiment that the politicians of now and the future will learn to nurture. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us. We'll leave you with the final song, Like a Roller in the Ocean, Life is Motion, Move On. Thakur Singh Powdyel needs to move on. I don't know to what, you haven't made that very clear either, but in either case, wherever it is that you're moving on to, whatever it is that you're moving on to, however it is that you are moving on to, you will always have the best wishes of this man here.
Thank you so much indeed. Once again, before I wind up,
please, Las.
And I'm so grateful that I have this space created by Radio Valley and Kunga yourself, your lovely program. I would like to thank all the fellow citizens, all my fellow citizens across the country, my students, their parents, my well-wishers, my colleagues, my family, for all the support and goodwill that I have received, both in sun as well as in rain, to come thus far. If I've done anything good, it is all thanks to you. And I wish all of you the very best in your life, and I wish our country, our Tsawsum, the very best in the future as well. I'm so honored to be a part of this space this afternoon, and thank you again, Radio Valley and Kunga.
It's been absolute. It's been our pleasure. It's absolutely been our pleasure. Before we started the show, I told you 1 hour seems like a long time. We've been talking for 1 hour and 40 minutes now.
Look at this.
And that was deliberate also. I have to say that was deliberate because Thakur Singh Powdyel is not the most musically in tune person. I mean, in the sense that you do appreciate music, but you don't know too many songs. We had difficulty finding 4 songs for him as well.
Very selective. Yes.
Right, so we figured we'd try and cover up as much space as we can with your wisdom. And I'm glad that that's how it panned out. Thank you so much, love, for spending all this time with us.
Thank you, Radio Valley.
Right, for those of you who are on radio, you out there on your radio right now, just know that this program, in case you missed any parts of it, the early parts of it, will be rebroadcasted tomorrow and the day after here on Radio Valley 99.9 FM. If you miss those also, you can always catch us on the Radio Valley Facebook page, where you will find the SoundCloud link. And of course, in a few days' time, thanks to the guys at Lavanya Films, we will put up the YouTube video also. And if you're listening live on a phone app like Radio Garden, hi out there, New York, Dubai, Oman, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, all you guys over there. And as always, my homies up there in Chamgang and Thimphu Central, you guys always rock. Remember, I do this for you. Take care. Have a brilliant weekend. I'm off to Punakha. Hope to have a good weekend there. Hope you have a similarly good weekend.